Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for Money Smart Day 2025. This is our student loan repayments What is Happening session. Um, Before we get started, just know that this session will be recorded, and the recording will be available in the weeks following our event today. With us to give our student loan repayment session, we have Shannon Osborne. Shannon is an associate director for financial well-being in the Student Support and Advocacy Center at Mason. Take it away, Shannon.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. So as we know, when it comes to student loan repayment, it's a very confusing time. There's a lot of changes going on in the government, and we're not really sure what's going to happen with them. So this is kind of a brief overview of all the different loan repayment options, and then just to go over what's going on and kind of next steps. So the first thing you can do if you're graduating now and you're thinking about repayments is you can go ahead and prepare to start the repayment process. So you want to know who your servicer is. You want to update your contact information on your loan servicer's website and on studentaid.gov as well. You want to review your current and potential repayment plans. And you also want to make sure you have auto pay sign up. It's also really important to understand how student loan repayments impact your credit score. So if you make on-time payments on your student loans, then you can improve your credit history. So borrowing a loan is having debt, and any debt that you repay can help increase your credit score as well. Any new loan you take out can help diversify the credit mix. So part of your credit score is made up of credit mix. So you have different types of debt, as I refer to it as good debt and bad debt. Bad debt being anything that's in collections or you're delinquent on. Good debt being different types of debts you're making on-time payments for. So credit cards, student loans, mortgage, car loan, those are all good types of debt as long as you're making on-time payments and it's manageable with your finances and your budget too. You can also if you forget a payment and it might negatively affect your credit score. So if you forget to make a student loan repayment, then it also could negatively impact you as well. And then if you miss multiple payments, it could hurt your payment history. And so that's why you want to make sure that you're making those on-time payments with everything. Okay, and then before you begin repayments, you want to make sure that you are ready to go with everything. So we talked about logging into studentaid.gov. Studentaid.gov is kind of the hub for anything financial aid related. It's where you did the FAFSA. You should have an FSA ID already created. So just log into that website, make sure that your address is up to date, make sure your contact information is up to date, make sure you even know what your login is. And if you forget your login, you can hit forgot password to get it reset and everything. And then you can also utilize the loan stimulator so you can budget what your monthly payments will look like when you do eventually graduate. And then you can also do loan consolidation and you can mess around with that and see if that's something you do want to consider or you don't want to consider when it comes to consolidation. And you can also learn more about the public service loan forgiveness and get help figuring out how to get that started too. So the biggest thing is when you log into studentaid.gov, you also should be able to figure out who your servicer is. It's important to know who your servicer is because it's going to matter when it comes to repayments and everything. So first, what is a direct loan servicer? So a direct loan servicer is a middle organization, basically. It's a company that's assigned to handle the billing and anything associated with repayment on the student loan. These companies are then contracted with the federal government, so contracted with the U.S. Department of Education to then service those loans to the students. So when you went to borrow a loan, you filled out the FAFSA, that's the application. Then the loans that were offered to you would have been the unsubsidized, the subsidized, a graduate plus loan, or a parent plus loan. So those are different types of loans. So then you are the borrower, and then you have to make repayments on those loans. The school processed the loans for you, but that's all they simply did was just process the loans. You don't make repayments directly to the school. You make repayments to the servicer, and then the servicer gives the money to the Department of Education, which was the one who lended you the money. So where you find your servicer, like I said, you can log into studentaid.gov at any time while you're in school or after school to see the servicer information. And there's many different types of servicers. The first is Ed Financial, which on this website, sorry, on this PowerPoint, you can click on it to then get to the website. Next is Mohila. So Mohila is the main servicer for public service loan forgiveness. There's also AidVantage, Nelnet. A new-ish one is Educational Computer Systems Inc., so ECSI. And the newest one is Central Research Inc., which is CRI. And then default resolution group is only for those that have defaulted on their federal loans. Most people will have the top six that are offered there. You don't choose who your servicer is. Your servicer is assigned to you. So next, I'm going to talk briefly about this repayment chart just to let you know the different types of repayments that are out there. So first, we have what's called a standard repayment plan. So a standard repayment plan says how much do you pay every month to pay this off at the end of 10 years. So let's say that you borrow $1,000 for your educational needs, and that's $1,000 loan. You could pay, roughly $10 a month or so, or maybe a little bit less, and then you pay that every month until it's paid off at the end of 10 years. Next is called an extended repayment plan. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. And that's the same thing as a standard, except for it's 25 years repayment. So it's how much you pay it off every month to pay it off at the end of 25 years. You have to have at least $30,000 of debt, though, in order to qualify for the extended repayment plan. After that, we have the graduated repayment plan. So a graduated repayment plan says it increases the payment every 2 years. So you set it up so that you can then pay $100 for a month for the first 2 years, $200 a month for the next 2 years, and so on and so forth. The idea with the graduate payment plan is that when students graduate, they're not making that much with their first job. And then over time, with years experience and promotion, they make enough later on to be able to increase how much that they have as well too, to be able to pay more. So graduated, extended, and standard repayment plans all assume you're paying everything off in full and are designed to pay everything off in full too. Especially with the graduated payment plan, if you want to get started on that, you would just contact your servicer directly. Same with extended repayment plan. So if you don't do anything at all, you'll automatically be put on the standard repayment plan. So if you want to be on the graduated or extended, then you would contact your servicer for that. The other four are what we call income-driven repayment plans. Income-driven repayment plans is where the income drives the student loan repayment. So as you borrow loans and you make money, as you make more money in income, then you're going to increase how much you pay on the income-driven repayment plans. So they're not dictated about your total amount that you've borrowed. It's not dictated to a set amount that you pay every month at the end of 10 or 15, 25 years. It's how much it increases over time. So I'm going to start at the bottom with the least used, which is called the income contingent repayment plan. The income contingent repayment plan is 20% discretionary income is how much you pay back. 20% discretionary income just basically means 150% of over the poverty level of the state you live in. It does take into account your household size. So if you're married, if you have children, and it will adjust depending upon what your household size number is. So obviously, if you're a single person, you're going to have the highest monthly payment. Where if you have multiple children, you're going to have a lower monthly payment because your household size has increased. We also have income-based repayment, or what they call new income-based repayment, but I'm just going to call this income-based repayment. And that's typically 15% discretionary income. They have forgiveness at the end of 25 years. I forgot to mention the income contingent also has forgiveness at the end of 25 years. However, you get taxed on how much money is forgiven at the end of 25 years. I haven't talked about public service loan forgiveness yet. That's just how much you pay every month. And then at the end of 25 years, you get taxed on how much is left at the end. The most common one is pay as you earn. That's 10% discretionary income, and it's forgiveness at the end of 20 years. They then came out with revised pay as you earn, and then I put dash save there because with save, it got rid of revised pay as you earn. The revised pay as you earn was 10% discretionary income, 20 years forgiveness for undergraduate loans, 25 years forgiveness for graduate loans. But with save plan, they made it 5% discretionary income. And they also had other forgiveness tied with it as well. But as you've heard with the news, the save is held up in the courts and it's most likely going to disappear. So then we won't have the save plan or the revised pay as you earn plan anymore. The only two we should probably, or three we should end up with would be pay as you earn, income-based repayment, or income contingent. Pay as you earn or income-based repayment are going to be your best options because they are going to be your lowest monthly payments. I do recommend for those that are in the save plan right now to get out of it as soon as you can. If you're in the SAVE plan, I recommend signing up for the income-based repayment or pay-as-you-earn. You can do that now through studentaid.gov, and you can choose pay-as-you-earn or income-based repayment. I erred on the side of caution myself and chose income-based repayment because it's not under any political viewpoint right now. Pay-as-you-earn is, so pay-as-you-earn might not be around anymore. So I just wanted to be safe and just do income-based repayment so I didn't have to switch again. I actually switched mine from SAVE to income-based repayment in December. So mine have not officially moved to income-based repayment. They are held up in administrative forbearance is what it's called. So I'm not required to pay anything during that time. However, the interest is also not accruing. And in addition to it too, this time with administrative forbearance does count towards public service loan forgiveness. It's held up in administrative forbearance because they have not been given the go-ahead from the Department of Education to officially approve moving over to income-based repayment. So it's just held up. If you're under SAVE and you're not moving it at all, then none of that time counts towards public service loan forgiveness. That's why you already have to have an application in to move to income-based repayment or pay-as-you-earn for it to count towards public service loan forgiveness. So like I said, I'm briefly going through this very quickly because I did want to open up for discussion uh, in general about how people feel with the repayments too. So next is public service loan forgiveness. So public service loan forgiveness says how much do you pay every month to get your loans forgiveness at the end of 10 years because of working in a nonprofit. In order to qualify for public service loan forgiveness, you have to be in an income-driven repayment plan. That's because with income-driven repayment plans, they're already tied to forgiveness. It's not like the standard or extended or graduate payment plans, which assume this is how much you're going to pay every month and then you'll pay it off at the end of XYZ years type thing. With public service loan forgiveness, you're working towards forgiveness. So the benefit is working in a nonprofit, government, state, local, tribal, government, 501c3 type job. And like I said, it's forgiveness at the end of 120 payments, only payments made after October 1st, 2007 count. Mohila is the servicer, and only direct loans count towards public service loan forgiveness. So direct unsubsidized, direct subsidized, direct graduate plus loan, those are the ones that count. FFEL loans or Perkins loans or private loans do not count to the overall forgiveness. You also want to make sure you're doing employment certification form every year. You send that form through the public service loan forgiveness tool that they have on their website, and you send it to your HR so that they can verify that you do work full time there and that they are a nonprofit. So they're not your company is not approving you to for public service loan forgiveness. All they're doing is verifying your employment with them. So if you're a George Mason University employee, for example, George Mason is a nonprofit, so George Mason does qualify for public service loan forgiveness, you would email hrverify@gmu.edu, and then they will fill out the form that then says, yes, you work full time here and we are a nonprofit. So that can count towards public service loan forgiveness. So I really recommend using the public service loan forgiveness tool through studentaid.gov to fill out those forms every year. So, like I said, right now student loan repayment is paused. So at this time, I'd open it up for discussion, but I'm gonna skip. Or there is somebody in. Is there somebody in the chat in the thing, Taylor?
I just added somebody into the room.
Okay. Well, let me think for a second. So I had done. So the person that came in, I had done the presentation on the different types of student loan repayments that we have and kind of went over where we're at with things, where there's no save anymore and how most people are switching over to pay as you earn income-based repayment. I did save the rest of the time to have a discussion about how people felt with repayments, if they had any specific questions about their repayments in general, or any worries that they had with the government changing everything and what that meant with everything. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions at this point or anything they want to discuss at this point. The biggest takeaway I have is just if you're on the SAVE plan, get off of it as soon as you can. You can switch over to income-based repayment or pay as you earn right now through studentaid.gov. And I do recommend that people do that if they're able to. And the last line I had was just questions too. Okay. let's see. So I'd scheduled to graduate in December, or I may stretch out to May 2026. So when you officially do graduate, you will have what's called a 6-month grace period. So you will begin repayments after that 6-month grace period. So if you graduate December 2025, that means your 6-month grace period will start at that point. So you'll be done with the grace period May 2026. So your first payment would be due June 2026. If you graduate May 2026, then 6 months from there would be November 2026. So around December 2026 is when your first monthly payment would be due. If you sign up for an income driven repayment plan, it will be based off your previous year's income. So, for example, at that point, you would then use your 2025 taxes if you graduate in 2026 to determine what your monthly payments will be um, going forward. And then every year under income driven repayment plans, they could possibly change depending upon what your income is. The best ones are income-based repayment or pay-as-you-earn. I'll go back to the slides that were missed on the different payment plan options too. And for the new person that just joined us as well, we're kind of just having a general discussion. I did a presentation the first 15 minutes or so on all the different repayment options, and then I kind of had a general discussion as to what concerns people had about student loan repayment, if they had any particular questions or anything like that that they wanted to talk about. So this is kind of the open discussion part of things. So these are the different payment options. The first three are the ones that assume that you're going to pay it in full and how many years you have to pay it in full. The bottom four are what we call income driven repayment plans. So your income drives what your monthly payment is. So those are the best ones to keep the amount that you're paying the smallest. And the idea is that you really want to keep it small so that you can dictate how much you pay per month. So let's say that my monthly payment is $50 a month. If I can afford to pay $200 a month, then I would definitely want to pay $200 a month to try to get it try to, pay off the loans faster under standard, graduated, or extended. If you're in income driven repayment plan, there's not really necessarily a point to pay them off faster or pay more because it's just going to reduce how much is forgiven at the end, assuming that you're doing it because you want to do public service loan forgiveness. So it really just depends on the individual when it comes to that. The one that we're going to be getting rid of, we already got rid of the revised pay as you earn. That became the save plan. The save plan is now no longer going to be a repayment plan. And so the ones that will be left, well, it's not official that save plan won't be. My guess is it probably won't be because it's held up in the courts right now. So the biggest ones would be pay as you earn, income-based repayment, or income contingent. So the best ones would probably pay as you earn, income-based repayment. But even pay as you earn is looking at like maybe that one might not be around anymore. We'll have to wait and see with that one. And then with public service loan forgiveness, you have to be working in a government or 501c3 for 10 years, making on-time payments. So that's about 120 payments, and only payments made after October 1st, 2007 count. And then it only is for direct loans. So only on direct loans do you get public service loan forgiveness. So like I said, I just kind of went back and highlighted the important stuff that I talked about, but this part was just more for a general discussion or just venting session about people unknowing what's going to happen with student loan repayments and what kind of concerns or questions that they had. And then if there's no other discussion ones that you want to do, then we can just kind of wrap it up there. I included Penny, our Money Smart Pig, here as well. But you can always send us an email, like maybe you want to meet with us to find out more about your loan repayments, and map out your student loan repayments. We can definitely meet with you as well. Um, we have a question that's asking about, is there anything I need to know if I'm planning to work outside the country after I graduate? Great question. And this does come up sometimes, especially if people do AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, different stuff. Um, there's nothing you really need to know except for just public service loan forgiveness can still count if you work for a different company in a different country, as long as they are a 501c3 or nonprofit. You still have to make your monthly payments because it impacts your credit score in the US. It's just dependent upon what your income is in that country that you're working at. Um, and so, like I said, as long as it's a 501(c)(3), a government agency, then probably it would count towards public service loan forgiveness. It also depends on contract. Let's say maybe you work for the government, or you say you won't be working for the government, but let me just give you an example. Sometimes people work for the government, but then they are going to be in a different country working. You're still working for the US government in that different country, so it's still the US government that's the main one for public service loan forgiveness. If you're not doing government, you could also do a nonprofit. There might be a nonprofit that you can work for in that different country. As long as it's a nonprofit, it would probably count towards public service loan forgiveness. If it's none of that, then you would just make your monthly payments based on either the income driven repayment plans, and then you get forgiveness at the end of 20 years, no matter where you work. Just know that you pay tax on how much is forgiven at the end of 20 years. And you can always, if you come back to the US and work in a nonprofit, you could always start public service loan forgiveness at that point when you come back as well.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon, for that wonderful presentation. I know there's a lot going on right now in the student loan repayment space, so I appreciate you walking us through that. And thank you all for participating in this session.